Hi, everyone. Welcome you all back to What's Up Podcast, a podcast for creating dialogue and resources for undocumented and AAPI community members. My name is Spoon. My pronouns are he, his, and him, and I'll park on it to Blue.
Thank you, Spoon. Hi, my name is Blue. Pronouns he, him, his, and I'll pop it up to Ria.
Hi everyone, my name is Ria. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll pass it on to Casey.
Hi everyone, my name is Casey and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and back to Spoon.
All right, thank you, Casey, and thank you for everybody else who participating today. So today's date is May 5th. It's Cinco de Mayo, on May 5th, 2021. It's our 6th episode, which is titled, Where'd You Get Your Information? It's going to be led by Ria, but before we do that part, we actually wanted to give you all a policy update, as always. So these are the most latest update we have until now, which is May 5th, 2021. These are the updates that we got from our affiliates as well as a connection and network within the organizing space. We want to give you some updates regarding those things. So I'm sure there's a lot of conversations regarding the border and unaccompanied minors. So Chilla, which is a organization in Southern California, will follow up with Maria Elena Perales with Representative Carrera, and the family is being flown to San Diego for expulsion into Tijuana in Mexico. Chola will also follow up with many different Michels flagging with Representative Barragan regarding the minors being flown from Long Beach to Midwest. And we, as always, we try to do a federal updates and then a state level and then local. So federal updates are as follows. There's a letter to the White House on the immigration inclusion in the Build Back Better plan. The letter has over currently 150 organizations who signed on to the letter. So thank you to all the organizations and all the organizers for the support. The letter will be submitted by next week for the hearing on essential workers. Senator Padilla, representing California, has a Senate hearing on immigration relief. It is in the Judiciary Committee happening next week. Folks impacted by the pandemic, is to help folks, conversation about folks affected by the pandemic. The bill is legalizing essential workers and their families. We're trying to get them a green card immediately. It will be interesting to see the dynamics changing and shifting in that discussion. There's a staunch opposition from the Republican side on there, which is so we're trying to help lift up the voices in the hearing. So there's two ways we can do that. One, lift up what you are seeing, how essential workers are impacted, and one of the senators can ask for a witness. Number two, organizational statements, just like Chilla or many organizations like KRC. Please reach out to them. Anyone who sees or anyone else who wants to send a letter or talk about their experience, please let them know by next Tuesday, which is May 11th, 2021 by 2 p.m. So we're going to get you more information on the description for those who are watching on at a later date. So there's also immigration reform through reconciliation. I know many discussions about reconciliation bill. The leader, Schumer, is working on a Senate parliamentarian and a budget office. You can attach legalizations to it. So attach immigration legalization to a reconciliation. This can be an attachment as it has a budget impact. They're looking to maximize that number of the people who can qualify for the legalization. And according to the New York Times, it will be a plan B on a bipartisan talks in case they don't go anywhere, which obviously they try to do always a bipartisanship, but seeing how it's very polarized, our congressional members are very polarized, our political climate, and immigration is such a hot issue. We might not go anywhere. So this is a plan B to do so. And the time frame for the reconciliation process is the next couple of months. So it's not rushing. It's not next week or anything, but it is still slow. There's no urgent deadline that we know of right now. The hearing would be important, which is going to be happening next week. The hearing will be important. Not next week, I'm sorry. The hearing in general will be very important. If this becomes a possibility, we need to make sure as many people as possible will be included. This not just we're not just talking about DACA, not just TPS, not just the dreamers, not just the essential workers and their families and more, but including everyone as much as we can, right? This would be one method. We might not get another chance to do so. So we're trying to do as many as we can. And as many people who are listening and as well as people here are aware, we try to do a Citizenship for All campaign, which means not just people who have a degree, not just people who have educational backgrounds or aspiration, not just people with professional aspirations, but everybody, right? Even those who have previous incarceration, because we believe in rehabilitation rather than family separation. There will be a push to limit that number from the opposition side, but given that California's strength and diversity, we want to maximize that number as our California voice, because we're located in California. Most of us are located in California, and we want to maximize and really empower our immigrant communities to act as soon as we can. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard about the U.S. Citizenship Act. It has reached the House Immigration Subcommittee. Representative Zoe Lofgren, it is on her desk. Announcement will take place sometime this month. We'll keep you all informed. Be sure to listen to our podcast as well as follow our KRC LA.org Instagram. Please follow us on our website as well, our Korean Resource Center. And we want to have a full court press when it does happen. So the closers are from California. And so Representative Chu, Bass, Royal Allard, and all part of the closers. So there's going to be a conversation regarding that. There's a virtual advocacy days happening. MPNA, which stands for National Partners for New Americans, will be lifting up nationalization work, contribution of immigrants. We would love if California partners could join the virtual advocacy days for anyone who would like to join, Zoom calls to help provide a California perspective. They need a lot of advocacy work because California has the highest number of undocumented immigrants in all the states. We want to make sure the California voices are represented in that conversation. So there's also a refugee cap number updates. There's been good news after weeks of pushback with the Biden administration. There's an announcement that the numbers will be raised to 62,500 refugees. This is a great win. The Biden administration has stated that if we might not reach those numbers, we might not reach those numbers at this time in this pace. So we're more than likely to settle half of that. I know it's unfortunate, but it is a big number and big win. So it is a promise, and so Biden is fulfilling that promise. It would not have been possible if it wasn't for the amazing organizing work from so many different organizations and social media work and signing on to letters and X, Y, and Z. It does take a entire movement to make something like this happen. So there's going to be a conversation about regional allocation, and we can have discussions about that. We do have it more in the chat, in the message here. I don't want to read all the numbers, but we can put it in the description. Be sure to check out our description. But there's a conversation regarding that. Keeping up with the federal news, I know there's a lot of news today regarding especially when we talk about issues right now, there's a lot of border situation. There's a lot of conversation regarding the border at this moment. Children are being put into emergency intake sites. There's another in San Diego, Paso Robles, and Long Beach, and Pomona to reunite with their families. Some of these children were separated from family members when they came when they came with them, or other family members when they were traveling. The families are being separated at the border, and if they arrive together as children and parents, they were being deported immediately with their parents. When Mexico is not able to receive them, they're allowed to stay in the United States. So basically, when we talk a lot about refugees as well as asylum seekers, it's not just people from Mexico. There's a lot of other people in the Southern America. So what they're trying to do is to say, I think what current system is, they're trying to be like, hey, Mexico, can you take them? And if Mexico refuse, then we sort of accept it. I think this is what they're saying here. I could get you all clarification on another date, but this is what it seems like it's saying. The criteria depends on the local border patrol folks, families, and their vulnerability. Most are still being expelled across the border. Some are being sent from Texas to San Diego and then expelled to Tijuana, Mexico. Mexican government is saying Texas can't take any more and it's being sent to Tijuana, exacerbating the situation. Representative Carrera is holding a hearing at 11 a.m. tomorrow regarding the border and to push and pull back a lot of issues that has been coming up with this current system. It is expected to come up. Immigration, migration issues going to come up again, obviously. For folks as single adults, they're being expelled immediately, and the children can get to stay. And if they're by themselves, I guess, and I think the families are being separated or expelled. So there's a lot of issues happening in the border at this moment. We're not sure what might have incurred more awareness to this issue, but it's very important for us, all of us, to stay aware during this time. So, few things in the state level now. AB 1368, creation of the case management of asylees in California. So California welcomes or many case management for asylees this is mirroring a refugee program. So asylee program now is mirroring the refugee program. This is so that asylees out of the Human Services Committee, it's to get more support for them. We wanted to shout out for many organizations and organizers for their powerful testimonies and asylees from Cameroon. This will continue on the Senate and Assembly Assembly side. We want to invite folks to participate in the hearings. For public comments, there's 30-second statement of support. We can let folks know when that will happen as the bill gets heard in the committee. It says that if it gets passed, it will allocate $8 million over the next 2 years, $4 million per year to help 4,000 asylees in California. So make sure a lot of the money is going to not go into directly to asylees. Obviously, it's going to go to resources, providing resources, but it is a lot of funding to help many people who are asylum seekers, especially in California. So another news, next week is Refugee Advocacy Week. We are urging push for AB 1368, obviously the one that we just mentioned, and SB 452, we're going to mention a little bit more later on, but some folks have registered. If you like, if you or many organizations would like to join the meeting with the representative, they can reach out to us. We don't want to close down any advocacy work, but we want to make sure that asylum grantees, asylees seeking and asylum is ready to start a new life. So we're gonna have y'all connected. There's an organizer named Anahita, who's actually an organizer from, if I recall, it says right here. Give me 1 second. So sorry about that. So it's Anahita at partnershipfornewamericans.org. There's a lot of resources there for asylum seekers. Just quick updates on a local level. We did a May 1st action previous week on a Saturday, May 1st, obviously, 2021. Los Angeles, it was a hybrid event. Different marchers and vehicles joined. We learned a lot of doing a hybrid format. We counted about 200 cars in LA, up to 1,000 marchers. Korean drummers were there. So KRC, Korean Resource Center, provided roughly around 12 drummers. There were blisters, drumming, I was there. So my arms are still sore. There was blisters all around on our fingers, but it was really great. And it was great to see a lot of different people. There's a lot of pictures out there. There's many different organizations, including Equality California, Answer LA, and Karasen, obviously Chilla, and DSA, and Women's March, and LA Fed, and SEIUs, and many organizations were participating there as well. There's in San Bernardino, there was over 100 people participated in their march. Ventura County, there's a lot more people there as well. They actually not just did the march, but also gave out food in boxes, and there was performers from a Oaxacan community there as well. Lastly, Oxnard, they collected testimonies. They demonstrated the power of all that we have and that the hope is still there. And it was great to see many different partners. Okay. With that, after that long update, so I'm going to pass the mic to Ria, who's going to get us into a discussion for today. Ria, take it away, please.
Thank you, Spoon, for all of the local and federal updates. It's really important for us to stay updated with the news and to also know what's going on. So thank you so much for always bringing those news to us for the podcast. So yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Ria, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. Speaking of information, our topic today will be on social media. More specifically on how we use it to stay updated with the world. I wanted to discuss this because as an undocumented individual myself, I feel the need to continuously stay updated with the news and resources that relate to the undocumented community, just like what Spoon was doing earlier today. Sometimes I get my info online or from the people that I know in real life. But because of the pandemic, I've relied a lot on social media the past year. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious about the way information travels to and within our community. So I guess we could start off with an icebreaker. The question that I have is, what social media do you use the most? And why do you use it? And for everyone else who may not use social media, what do you use to stay updated with the current events that are going on in the world? We'll take a few minutes to think about that. While everyone's thinking about that, I can go ahead and start first. So the social media that I use the most is probably TikTok and Instagram, but for different reasons. So for TikTok, I use it whenever I feel like I'm really bored, and I know eventually once I scroll down the algorithm, I'll find something that is really entertaining. Like for TikTok, it's so random. You can have a video about dogs, and then in the next video, you'll have an informative video of how to dress well for a business casual meeting, and then you'll have another video about raising awareness for an issue that's happening in our country. So it's like all of my interests just all in one, and it's really fun, and people get to talk and edit in however ways they want. So I love TikTok for that. As for Instagram, I like using Instagram to stay updated with my friends, especially my friends in college and in high school. Try to like keep up with them, see what's going on in their lives, and they can stay updated with me. But ever since last year, with the pandemic, of course, it was kind of harder to, I don't know, it was like there was so much information going on that Instagram created like a new format. I don't think Instagram made it, but people started to adopt this PowerPoint format where they would make slides, informational slides, just full of text, and use it to dissect all of the different things that people were talking about, the topics that were happening during the week. So if after that, I just used Instagram to like stay updated with the news, to learn more information, because you know how people are like, link in my bio. So that's really helpful to me to start researching about the topic more and to donate, just dive into the topic at hand. But yeah, I use Instagram and TikTok the most. I guess I can pass it on to Spoon next.
Yes, yeah. So I think Spoon here. I think in terms of social media, I don't really like to use too much. I think I don't know if YouTube counts as social media. I think it does. I do use YouTube, I think, a lot. I would say out of all the apps on my phone, I use obviously not just the phone, text message, other messaging apps, but YouTube the most. I think that would be the most. I know on iOS you can see which app you use the most, and it's always YouTube every single time. I listen to a lot of podcasts there, videos. I watch a lot of videos, and sometimes like TikTok videos also gets compilation gets added to YouTube. So I just sort of use that as like a main go-to. I used to use Reddit a lot. I used to use it religiously. Reddit was something where it's more of like news formats and something that I wanted to laugh about. But I don't use it too much anymore because I'm mostly on my phone, and Reddit on your phone isn't as useful. So Reddit was something I use a lot. I don't use too much of like traditional social media. I know it's weird to say traditional social media since social media is so new, but like, I don't really use too much of Facebook and Instagram. I think for me, it's just, if I wanted to keep in touch with somebody, I just mostly like text them. But I do use Instagram more than Facebook. I know that I try to like my friends' post more often to to help them out. I know that I have a couple of friends who are starting their own business, and they do have to have a social media for their business. And I sort of like their posts and sort of comment on it and try to share it with our communities as well. So I try to use that as well. But yeah, I think it depends on what I am in the mood for or what the reason is. So I do get to use Instagram and Facebook if there's a purpose for it to spread the message or anything like that. But to answer your question, where I get most information, and most I get from work. I do work currently with the nonprofit where I get all these policy updates. But also, if it's something like random, sometimes it's Twitter. I use Twitter, but I definitely don't get my news from Instagram or Facebook. Don't have TikTok, so I don't really have that. But I definitely, if I'm getting news, most likely from somebody from work, we need to stay informed. Somebody emails or contacts us, anything like that. Yeah. And I'll popcorn it to, I think Casey wanted to go next. Casey, go ahead.
Hi everyone. I use Instagram a lot. Like that is like my main form of like social media. I have a Facebook, I have a Snapchat. I don't have TikTok. I mean, I have the app downloaded, but I never open it because I feel like Instagram just kind of like has a little bit of everything on it. Like if I'm looking at my feed, like a TikTok will like just like pop up anyway. And I know like my brother gets super annoyed with me because I'll show him a TikTok that I saw on Instagram and he's like, "That's so old. I saw that like a week ago. You're so behind." And I'm like, "Well, I don't really mind being behind on these trends." But I really use Instagram, like Ria said, to like stay connected with like friends from college, friends from high school, and like just like I don't want to say like keeping tabs because like that sounds like sketchy, but at least like it helps all of us like know where we're at, and it's like fun to see like, oh, how far they've come, since the last time I saw them. And then I think I think Instagram does a really good job, like Ria stated earlier, about like having like a platform to jump off or a jumping off point, because with the whole Black Lives Matter, with the whole AAPI awareness, I think that Instagram is a great format for like stating like a big headline and then providing links to like where you can find more information later on if you're interested. And so I find that super useful. And I think like Instagram is like where I go to just like gaze or like to like overlook on everything. And then from there, I can like pinpoint what I really want to like delve into deeper. And yeah, I don't know if Blue would like to go next, but that's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Casey, for that. Blue here. Yeah, I guess for me in particular, the main one that I guess I would use is Instagram. I don't really use it that much. I kind of just check what I think it's interesting, like from like the pages that I follow, and then I kind of log off. But I check it like maybe once a day, daily. So just once a day, just to check, how everybody's doing, like the people that I follow and things like that. In terms of information, yeah, on occasions I will get some information from Instagram, but I'm not a big social media person. I don't think it's all that productive to be in social media, to be honest, at times. Although I understand that, because of the pandemic and because we live in such a technological sort of world where today, it's like sort of very commonplace for us to use those kinds of platforms. So I think they're great in some ways. I much rather not spend my time scrolling that much because it can get a little addictive at times if you're not careful. But yeah, I get my information mainly from just going into different websites, but not particularly from social media specifically. But yeah, yeah, no, I think that's it. And I guess I'll pass it off to Bria.
Thanks everybody for sharing. I heard a lot of different social medias. I heard YouTube, I heard Reddit, I heard Snapchat and Facebook. I have definitely used all of those different social media apps before. And I also agree with Blue that social media can be very addicting, therefore not productive whenever I'm trying to do something or trying to do a task. I mean, I feel like I've had a lot of times when I have something due at the end of the day and I'm like, okay, I'll just work on it for 10 minutes and then take a 10-minute break. And obviously that 10-minute break did not stay 10 minutes. So I know the pros and cons of using social media, but thank you everyone for contributing. I think YouTube counts as a social media. It's what people use to talk about anything, I guess. How do you even define social media? I guess that could be another topic. But anyway, to move forward with the conversation, I just wanted to, I'm still a little bit curious, like with all of the social media pages that you follow or with the sources of information that you use, which ones do you use the most? Like, which ones do you use to stay connected with the world news? Do you use the internet to keep up with world news, or do you watch the news on TV? Because I feel like not many people use or watch TV news anymore. Is that a common experience with everybody?
Yes, yeah. I think I don't know if people watch the news on their TV anymore. I know that my parents would now watch YouTube as well. So I think now it's weird to say people get the news on the TV. I think it's now that it's so readily available at any given time on your phone, on your work, on your computer. I don't know if I don't remember the last time somebody said, "Hey, did you watch that TV on the like? Did you watch the news on the TV?" You're like, "What?" You know, something like, "Send me the link" or something like, "Send me the link to a YouTube video" or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say like, "Wow, did you see what was on the TV last night?" Like that's not that's not a common saying anymore. I think news has transcended from the TV into the internet because media is just so much more accessible that way. I guess since we're gonna stay on the internet side, how do you come across those? Let me see. How do I? There's so much to talk about information. I guess I for my experience, I started to transition the way I use social media. So at the beginning of the pandemic or before the pandemic, social media was a place for me to stay updated with all the close relationships that I had in my personal life and in wherever I met these people. But slowly as the year went on, social media started to become this place of resource, this place where I would find out about undocumented resources, about AAPI resources. I started to follow pages of community organizations. For example, I found KRC through social media, and without it, I don't think I would be able to know about these policy updates, these resources that are available to me until then. So I was curious to see if your experience has changed as well. Like, has being on the internet turned into this informational, resourceful source of information, like this gold mine? I can clarify more if you feel like this question is pretty loaded.
I think it's a great question, honestly. To make a comment on like your earlier statement about like not many people are watching the news as much. I'm actually writing a research paper on this, or like for a class. And it's funny because the research articles are showing that nowadays, like while people are using social media, like the audience for that is growing while the audience for like traditional news outlets are shrinking. So while it's still like in the minority, there's definitely a rise in people preferring like social media outlets to traditional news outlets on the TV. So I think that's super interesting. And I think that for like you said earlier, I think that social media is like changing. I don't want to say it's like a living organism, but it's definitely adapting with the times. Whereas I think like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it was really much more about like memes and funny videos, and now it's an outlet for like direct news sources or stories. And so I think like I've definitely, with the algorithms too, like in place for Instagram, I'll be specific with Instagram. I think like the more I started to interact with these like social justice posts about the undocumented community, much more of that started to pop up on my feed. And through that, I was able to like start following local businesses in my community that were owned by undocumented immigrants. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And this is a way I can like support the community, you know? So I don't know. That's all.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Casey was saying, yeah, in terms of social media, I do think that there has been some sort of transition that, social media back then used to be used primarily for recreational purposes. And, even though some people obviously used it for information, I think that now it's a lot more prevalent for people to get their information through social media, with the rise of, just social media platforms. Because I felt like there was a time where it was only just like Facebook and MySpace, and there was only like a few platforms, but now there's so many platforms available to everybody. And then it's like going back to the previous question that Ria was mentioning about television and how you get your news. I do believe that, there is also a transition there where, people of younger demographics are preferring to use social media platforms instead of getting their news through television, because it's more portable. You have a phone and you carry it with you, and you have access to all this information. So I mean, I think it's pretty common, and I think it's going to trend that way. And eventually, you could say that potentially TVs might die out. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's still going to be a use for them, but in terms of like news and things like that, they might trend towards the negative direction where you don't use them as much anymore, and you only use them for like sports or like events and things like that to watch certain things. But yeah, I think that thanks to social media, I have been able to also find KRC. So I am thankful for that, and the connections that I've been able to build through social media. But I don't really use it as much, but yeah.
Yeah, I could piggyback on what even Blue also mentioned, piggyback on what Casey mentioned as well. And overall, Ria mentioned something about how TV, I think, I know that social media, how if there's a dynamic shift toward, I remember somebody mentioned like once we sort of shift a lot of our attention and our power from a traditional media, it makes it so that everybody and anybody with the phone becomes a reporter, right? And I think that allows us to have information from all over the world and immediately, rather than having to go from one person to the reporter and the reporter to a producer and the producer records it and then get to us, right? I know that allows us to get away from, shift the emphasis from conservative and very corporatized messages. And then on the other side, now there's a lot of false information out right now, which is dangerous as well. I know that there's a lot of conversations and about, I think, I'm not too familiar with QAnon, or there's this whole emphasis on like anti-vaccine and a lot of this misinformation, or like flat earthers, which is crazy. But there's a platform for them as well. So I think I'm hoping that it's more of a pendulum swing where we sort of moved away from these conservative values, conservative form of communication where people are like saying like, oh, all these conservative values, but shifting towards more of like a liberating and more progressive value where now everybody has a voice, not just people with power and money, but now hopefully we're shifting back from all this. Now, anybody who have conspiracy theories have it. So our podcast is a form of new media, it's a form of new media. Obviously it has, roots in radio, and I think there's I think guerrilla radio that has been around for years, anybody just wanting to start their own radio broadcasting. But now that we do have podcasts, this opportunity allows us to spread the message and talk about our stories. And I think it really gives the power to the community rather than the top few, right? So hopefully there's, we find a way to sort of finding the right balance between, these like elite having this control of information to now everybody, but now we have a way to control, get rid of all this false information that are downright completely false, right? So I don't know what the right balance is, and I don't think I would know, but hopefully we can get to a place where we sort of understand that we shift the value of power from the elite, but also get a way to verify information, right? So yeah, hopefully we can get to that place in the future.
I wanted to piggyback off of that point where you said, or where Spoon said, that the social media has taken the power from these big corporations who at first would be the first people to get this news source and then dilute it so much that it gets to the people. But now the people themselves get to be their own reporters. We can get our information right away, and it could be directly from the source. It's a primary resource. We don't have to wait until a bigger corporation gets the news out, because now I think I was thinking about TikTok earlier, why I like the platform so much over different social medias is because they circulate whose voices get to be heard. For example, in my algorithm, I get people who have 1.5 million likes and many followers, but I also get people who have 0 views and 0 likes onto my page. So it allows everyday people to be exposed to other people. It's not just the people who have the most power at this certain moment. Like, anybody can say their truth and say what they want to say. But of course, with what Spoon said, there's that misinformation that's really that's circulating a lot faster than before. You have subreddits, you have QAnon. QAnon is so dangerous. I thought about QAnon recently because there's this HBO Max documentary that went on about who's actually controlling QAnon. I suggest everyone to look at that documentary. But anyways, there is less, there's no verifying the information that people say online, which is dangerous. But to say that, I think it is nice that the power is now with the people, with us. Us creating this podcast is very empowering, and we can talk about our truth about undocumented issues or just anything at all, and we don't feel like we're going to be silent for that. I think that's really freeing. Just to talk about what everyone else said, I think Casey mentioned that 5 to 6 years ago, maybe social media wasn't as was a place for funny memes. But I think as we got older and as technology got better and better, the algorithms got better and better at specializing in our preferences. So for example, if I like a bunch of undocumented organizations or people who are undocumented businesses, the algorithm will directly lead me to other undocumented businesses and organizations. The algorithm has gotten so much better at that, which is really great because then people can get the exposure that they need. What else? Oh, TV is definitely dying out. I think TV is gone. There's no such thing as TV anymore. The power is within the internet, within social media. And I think I really, really appreciate this conversation. I didn't even think that it was going to go into the TV route. But to bring it back to what I was intending to talk about today, I think it's just how do we as an undocumented community or people who are within the undocumented space, how are we getting our information? It's really hard, I think, because for most people, it is really hard to reach out and say, hey, I'm undocumented, like, can you help me? Um, do you think there should be other ways to get help? Like, I think that social media is a great place to get help, but we don't know, or other people don't know how to get help without feeling confident to ask for help, if that makes sense. It's like I don't know where to get resources from if those resources weren't put in front of me. So how could anybody know how to get access to these resources? Yeah, does anyone have anything to say? I think Spoon does.
Yes, yeah. So I can speak a little bit. Spoon here again. So I remember when COVID hit, sometime last year, 2020, and it it really it really shook our community to its core, right? And we had to shut down. We had to close all of our doors. We couldn't even let anybody come in. None of us, even though service staff, people who see community members consistently, couldn't come in. Long before COVID, it seems like years ago, but long before COVID, we used to have Korean seniors who just come in. Our doors were always open, and people used to go in and out all the time. Since some seniors would just come in with some bills and be like, "Hey, what does this say?" Like, because they need a translation, medical bills or any sort of bills. They're like, "Hey, can you tell me what this means?" And it would just come in and we just talk to them in the lobby, and then we just like, "Okay, thank you," and they just leave. We can't do that anymore. And the issues were now like, I think the communities who are on social media already generally tends to be anybody who's not a senior tends to be on social media who are able to sort of utilize social media or video platforms, online platform or Zoom. But a lot of the seniors, especially because of the language barrier, nobody can really help them and teach them, or some of them don't even have internet at home. So they still use a landline. And it's our biggest concern was like, how do we reach out to those people who don't know how to use online stuff, and how do you teach them? They don't even probably don't even have a computer. Some of them don't even have a smartphone, which is and they don't have internet on their phones, or they don't have internet. So how do you reach out to them? I think that was the biggest concern, which is why I think a lot of the conversations are now coming towards how internet, ISP, internet service providers, internet should be an essential, like water, like electricity, like gas. It should be considered an essential because these days, if you don't have internet, you're complete. You can't do anything. You literally can't work. You can't go to school. You can't. And I think pandemic really made us be more aware of that. I think a lot of us knew already, but I think it made us be aware of that more. So I think I don't know what the answer is. We try to call them, try to check in on their seniors, but a lot of the services that a lot of the seniors and the communities who are most vulnerable used to get was face to face. They like talking to you, and they like showing you. They like pointing out the paper, like tangible things. They're like, here, this, I want to know what this part says right here, right? But they can't do that anymore. And I think, and I know that a lot of us are going through a lot, but I think, and I personally that I think seniors and immigrant seniors who don't have access to language access as well are are the are at the worst position, because they can't even see the young ones, their family members, and they don't even know what to do, and they get these bills and they can't get the help, and they don't know how to reach out. And I think it's the hardest for them. Yeah. So I think um, just how internet really and how do we provide resources for those who don't have access to internet, and who don't really do that, who can't learn. You know, that's just the biggest concern that I might have addressing.
You're right. The senior and the older immigrants, the immigrant seniors are at the worst position right now because they don't have internet. Some people don't have internet, and they can't get the resources as fast as the younger generation does. I was so stuck in my own bubble. I completely honestly forgot that like the seniors don't have the same access to the stuff that we do. And yeah, I don't know how. Maybe it's being more active on checking in on them instead of waiting for them to reach out to us. Like we reach out to them. Yeah, I guess calling them would be also very, very helpful. But I think you brought up a really great point. Internet is very much essential in this day and age. There's no way we can do anything without it. And for the people who don't have internet right now, they're at a great disadvantage for sure. I think I now know what. Wait, can we? I'm sorry. Can we pause?
Yes.
Hi, thanks everyone. Sorry for the little technical mishap. I was so enchanted in what Spoon had to say. I totally forgot about the question that I was asking myself. But from hearing about what he said, I started to think about the kinds of media that I want to see, or the kinds of media that the undocumented community or immigrant community wants to see as a whole. We don't have to stick to social media. We can talk about different forms of media, such as in podcasts, in writing, in movies and television shows. So the question is, what kind of media do you want to see moving forward? If nobody wants to start first, I can try to think of my answer while everyone else does. So for me, I think the kind of media that I want to see, that I would be really shocked to see, are TV shows about undocumented people. Like where the undocumented person is the main character, and then we see this person go through their entire life navigating the United States without status. Like I think that is a really great narrative, and I think it'll touch many lives, because undocumented Americans are Americans too. Like this is a narrative that has been going on for years, and many times it has just been swept under the rug instead of being the main focus of it all. And I think if we do have media that showcases how much undocumented Americans struggle, it'll help change the perspective that people on the conservative side might have about us, about what we're going through, that we're not just people stealing jobs and stealing resources from the Americans themselves. Like I think it would be a really great media source, and like it'll definitely go viral if like the writing goes really well, and if the experiences are so nuanced, like people will share it and people will understand and resonate with that kind of stuff. So does anyone else have any media that they want to see?
Yeah, to just to continue the conversation, I guess. I also want to see something similar to what you mentioned, but I also would like to for undocumented people and immigrant people to have the opportunity to to showcase what they bring to what their talents are, what their contributions are, and to be celebrated, right, about their contributions, right? Because I think that the narrative has always shifted towards like us, the undocumented community, kind of being there to steal jobs that people know that nobody really wants. Because it struck me, it reminded me of this video that I watched of this farmer that was an American farmer that because of the pandemic, he couldn't bring in workers, undocumented workers that were work in the fields, and he said that if it weren't for them, his farm would completely go out of business. And because of the pandemic, he has had very limited amounts of resources for these workers that he hires. And he kind of also changed the narrative, and he said that a lot of these undocumented people do jobs that nobody wants. So I always feel like this notion of undocumented people sort of stealing jobs is a false notion, because a lot of these people have jobs that nobody really wants. There are low-paying jobs that really don't provide as much financially or beyond, what the job pays. And so I think that, while I do think that the struggles are much important issues that should be highlighted, I also would like to see the positive side of things, where we celebrate the contributions that the undocumented community does for the country, and that can also shift the narrative and the perception of undocumented people stealing jobs or being bad for this country.
Yeah, I definitely share the same sentiments as Blue on this. I feel like the stories that we do hear about the undocumented community are really shrouded in like negativity, or it's a story about so much struggle. And I'm not saying like there isn't struggle in it. I'm just saying like I want to hear about like the success stories. I want to hear about those who, despite the adversaries, oh my gosh, English, um, who overcome it. And I want it to be known that like these members of the community are just that. We're a community, and it shouldn't be segregated in the sense of like by, oh, they're undocumented, therefore that they're stealing our jobs, therefore they're obviously suffering, therefore this, therefore that. And I think it'd be beautiful just to be able to hear something more about undocumented success. I think if we're going to be talking about like social media, I would love it to be more normalized that like undocumented businesses get as much publicity as like other businesses. I feel like there, with the COVID pandemic, I keep thinking about this local flower shop that is like nearby where I live, and there's these two lovely ladies and their mom who run it. They built that flower shop from the ground up, and they're all DACA recipients. And I would have never found out about them or their shop if it wasn't through this weird like coincidence of like me scrolling through their feed and them talking about what it's like to be a business and what it's like to run that as an undocumented person, you know? And so I think that I would love it to be more quote unquote mainstream. I don't think that's like the appropriate way to say it, but I just want to see more visibility, as well as more inclusivity, because I feel like when people think about the undocumented community, they have like a certain race or ethnicity associated with it, and it's not just one.
Yes, yeah, I think just to recap, there is actually a TV show called Sunnyside. It's not hosted by, it's not sponsoring this at all. Like I remember I heard about it because I was a fan of, I'm still technically a fan of Kyle Penn. Kyle Penn, who's a actor / comedian, who's like really funny. I love his works from other movies and stuff. There was a show called Sunnyside where he was talking about like just issues about like like immigrants in need of helping, like in need of immigration, and how the process of immigration is really difficult, and it is really wild, diverse cast of funny and amazing and talented people. But it got canceled after one season. But I guess not many people watched it, but I guess maybe it was ahead of its time. I've never seen it. It was a comedy, so it was very heartfelt comedy, but who knows? But I think some of the contents I would like to see is something like that as well. Like I think it's something with the comedy. I'm a huge fan of comedy. But I want to be able to push the boundaries of what it means to be from a BIPOC community, a low-income immigrant community, or any sort of marginalized community. I want to be able to take charge and really push the boundaries of all of that, and how each each identity, right? Intersectionality aspect as well, how each identity, even if you are immigrant, you're not just an immigrant. Just because you are a belong to the LGBTQ plus community, you're not just that. That doesn't define who you are. And I think really playing with those ideas in multiple ways, I think it'd be really good to see those content. I know that when we started this podcast, we wanted to take a hold not just of our narratives and our just not having to rely on a traditional media, whether it is TV or even social media with huge platforms. Not we rely on them, but really talking about our stories. And I think they'll be perfect for us to be able to do that. And I think I want to see more of these. I want to see What's Up podcast, different versions, and many different people coming out and talking about their issues and their passion and their vision and their goal and their voice being uplifted and increasing, getting bigger. So I think I want to see a lot of things that are not traditional. I think that's what I want to see, and that really pushes the boundaries of what our voices and empowerment really means for us individually. So yeah, anything that pushes the boundaries and anything that's true, stays true to and is transparent and that pushes the boundaries of what is traditional. I think that's what I wanted to see going forward, and I think I'm hoping that we're doing that a lot here as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. I think I really hope to see that kind of new, all of our different stories put into the media someday, hopefully soon, not later. But just to try to reiterate what everyone said, it would be nice to see a diverse plethora of stories. Like, we're not just undocumented people, or we are also students. We are a family member. We are people who are also interested in games and other things. Like, we're not just one person. We are a person with many interests and many personalities. And I'm just hoping that we have an opportunity to truly show what our experiences are, instead of having the media and the higher ups take that story and then shape it into something else. I just like what Casey said earlier, I would love to see more stories about undocumented success as well. It is really important for us to see that our community is thriving. We have been thriving. It's just that people don't talk about it and people don't celebrate it as much. So just to also, I don't know, I hope we can also celebrate this podcast. Like, I think we're thriving. I think we're doing something really great here, and we're also having really great conversations. But yeah, thank you everybody for sharing your thoughts about information and social media and the news today. We went all over the place, but I think we were able to get it back to what we want to see in the future about undocumented stories and undocumented resources. So thanks so much. I hopefully we'll be able to facilitate again with something a little bit more specific and nuanced, but everyone contributed so much. So I guess I'll leave it to Spoon.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much again, Ria, for leading us in that discussion. Thank you to Blue and Casey for also participating in that discussion. It was a great discussion. I think we talked about so many different things, and a topic so big as information and how we get our information and what sort of information is out there. This was such an amazing episode. And yeah, please help us create more of these episodes. Please continue to watch, listen to our podcast. Please share to other people. Please make sure that we, our voices and your voices as well, can be uplifted into our conversation that we're going to continue to have about immigration, about media, about information, about health, about entertainment, and everything else throughout in that spectrum. So thank you all so much for watching. Please be sure to tune in for next week as well. You can follow us on our social media. And we want to emphasize how much power it has. And please be sure to follow us, and please let us know if there's any topics that you want to talk about as well. We have already listed topics we have ready. But we'll see you all. Until then, we'll see you all next week. Thank you all so much, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.